Bismillahi walhamdulillah wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah Rabbi shrah li sadri wassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and peace be upon you all. Welcome. Happy to see you guys. It's so nice when we do these halakas and it's like still daytime now. It makes me feel like I still have the whole day ahead of me. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. The topic I have for today is about the significant attachment that we have to what is trivial, right? And how that contributes to our struggles and how that contributes to, just the burden that we carry, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a lot of burdens we carry, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not ask us to carry, right? So it's really important that we always assess how attached we are to this dunya, and do we see it for what it is. Now, it's easy to say, yeah, I'm Muslim and I believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I'm not attached to this dunya. But the reality is that many of us are attached, and many of us are preoccupied, because there's nothing preoccupied with this dunya, because there's nothing more trivial, think about it, than this dunya compared to the next world, right? So today I want to focus on that, the triviality of this dunya, of this lower world, and how that contributes to our stressors and the burdens that we carry, and how important it is to recenter our focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on His power, which in turn helps us have tawakkul, helps us have reliance on Him, true reliance on Him. One thing I always like to emphasize is that if this world is your greatest priority, your struggles will always be heightened. This is a fact. The more that this world is your only reality in your heart, meaning it's what you're thinking about the most, it's the reality that you are working for the most, it's the reality that you are most preoccupied with, it's the world that you are most attached to, expect heightened struggles, always expect that. And if you have ever been through phases in your life where you were more attached to the akhirah, which is the hereafter, the next world, what I like to refer to as the higher world, you will find you might have experienced what it was like to feel lighter walking this world, walking this human experience. So when that world becomes a reality to you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He does so many things for you internally and externally, because you got the formula now. So you experience the lightness of the soul when you attach to the world that it came from. And I think in our world today, because of how anti-religion our world is, anti-God our world is, right? I think many of us are programmed to feel it be a foreign thing. Many of us are programmed to feel like it's a foreign thing to attach to the akhirah. Like it's so strange. It's so, how can I explain it? It makes me morbid. It makes me somebody who's like not concerned about living and being alive, and being somebody who wants to maximize my life, right? There's all these associations that you have, and we cannot diminish or negate the constant association that's made in our media, in our shows, in our movies, between those who are religious and bad character, those who are religious and doing the worst things. It's constantly there. Most of the shows that you watch, you will notice that, and this is psychological programming, you will notice that the best person is the person who is displeasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the most, and the person who is the most religious person is the person who's doing the worst things, has the worst character, mistreating those around them. And there's this constant emphasis, right? There's this constant emphasis. What does it do to us? It makes you think that, what you're doing is foreign and strange. But the Prophet ﷺ told us that the believer will feel like we'll be a stranger in this world. So part of your growth spiritually is about making sure that you renew the lens in which you view your own faith, and you tackle the psychological barriers that come between you and your own faith. Because if you don't do that, you might be detaching from realities that are true and are important and not realizing it, because you subconsciously view it as negative. So a lot of people, for example, they're resistant to spending time connecting to the akhirah. And I see this because I work a lot with people on their psychological barriers that keep them from their spiritual growth. And at the Home Institute, that's a big part of our work, not only looking at people's self-image and how that interferes with their God image, but also looking at all the different things that come up for them or block them from having a fulfilling, nourishing, and truthful relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And a big part of that is a lot of people don't realize how they subconsciously view certain aspects of the faith negatively because they never checked their programming. And even though they'll say, I believe in those things, they don't realize that subconscious or that blockage that they're unaware of is actually showing up in their actions and their resistance and their attachment to the dunya. There's a big one is that, if I'm someone who prioritizes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's truth and the akhirah, right, and the hereafter, then I'm going to become one of those people nobody wants to hang out with. I'm going to become one of those people that's so morbid. Women have this association a lot with hijab too. If I wear hijab, I'm going to be this kind of woman. I'm going to be that kind of woman, right? And like all these negative associations that we might have with different aspects of our faith that we don't realize, right? So when it comes to the akhirah and it comes to making that world a greater priority, assess your resistance to it. Assess why it is hard for you to sit, for example, with the verses of Jannah, the verses of the hereafter, the verses of the Day of Judgment, and really sit with it and reflect on it and envision it and really understand that is a reality just as real as you looking around and seeing this is a reality. You just are veiled from it right now. The Prophet ﷺ, on the night of a full moon, he looked to the full moon and he said to the Sahaba, you will see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just as clearly as you see this full moon. This is how it is, a reality it is, our inevitable meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For those who are, blessed with the opportunity to see Allah's face, that we will see it just as clearly as you see a full moon. And for the people of Jannah, actually, the greatest reward is not the blessings of Jannah. The greatest reward for the people of Jannah is being able to witness Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's face. So that's what I want to start off with, just, getting you to really assess what is it that keeps me from fully submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from fully practicing, from fully, attaching my heart to the truths that He taught us about. Do I pick and choose what I want to believe in? Do I pick and choose what makes me feel good? Do I pick and choose what is comfortable for me? Do I pick and choose what, is just relevant to my life, right? And these are things we have to assess. But know this for a fact, that you're missing out when you are more attached to this world than the next. You're missing out. You're missing out on greater peace, on greater lightness, on greater, inner freedom. You start to put down things that are trivial. See, if the dunya is trivial compared to the next world, then when you start detaching from it, it's inevitable that you will start also putting down what is trivial. Oh, that doesn't really matter anymore. That question that they ask people, they tell them, when you're really upset about something, ask yourself, it's going to matter in 5 years. So, you ever heard of that? They say, in the self-help world, they'll say, one of the ways to gain perspective of an issue is ask yourself, is this really going to be an issue for me in 5 years? Is that going to really matter for me in 5 years? So we have a bigger issue. Is this really going to be something I get asked about in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is this something that's going to really matter to me in the akhirah? So struggle comes when we become preoccupied with what is trivial. And I'm sure you guys have all had these moments. I know that many people today struggle with this. They will sit and obsess over the most trivial things, giving it so much power over their lives, when in the long run, and a lot of times it's people's opinions, people's thoughts, people's actions. Why did that person do this? And they let it consume so much of their energy, so much of their day, until it becomes overpowering in their lives. This speaks, if you find yourself like this, like a yo-yo constantly going up and down, for example, you're constantly at the mercy of that which is outside of you, people's actions or what people do, and you're constantly you're just like up and down, up and down, up and down, that means you're easily affected and by what is around you, and you're so attached to this world. So struggle comes when we become occupied with what is trivial and insignificant, and when we minimize or even abandon that which is significant, which is not to say that our lives are not significant, not to say, and this is like the biggest misconception, but there's in comparison to the next, there's a lot of things that are trivial that we should not be focusing on, that we should not be giving so much of our energy to. So Ibn Ata'Allah Iskandari, rahimahullah, he says it very directly, and I'm gonna say it to you as he says it, even though it might come off a little harsh, but I'm gonna give you a perspective of why he would say it this way. Okay? So Ibn Ata'Allah, rahimahullah, he says, if you were dignified, then you would be occupied with the dignified. Okay? And whoever occupies himself with the trivial and leaves that which is important, we regard him to be a fool. Sounds harsh, right? Sounds direct and harsh. And you might be like, wait a minute, like, am I not dignified, right? But I want you to think about it, or am I a fool for focusing on what's trivial? Does that make me foolish? Well, I want you to think about it this way. If you're working on, let's say, a school project or a work project, every project that you work on has specific requirements. The teacher sets specific requirements, or your boss sets specific requirements, right? And for it to be accepted for you to get an A, it has specific requirements. Let's say you're working on a project and your teacher says, well, to get an A, these are the requirements you have to fulfill. Okay, make sure that this project has this, you make sure you complete that, make sure you submit this, right, with the project. And then you have a partner who's working with you on the project, and they keep focusing on the stupidest, most trivial things that have nothing to do with the requirements. Would you think that he's a fool to be wasting your time and his time and his energy to be focusing on all these aspects of the project that the teacher's not going to even look at, that the teacher's not going to even ask about, that the teacher's not going to even grade on, while neglecting what will be graded on? Wouldn't you say that's foolish? When you have this situation where you have specific requirements, you're going to start getting frustrated. You'll be like, can we please focus on what's on hand? Can we please focus? Can we please focus? If you're on vacation and someone keeps bringing in issues that have to do with back home, or things that are not that keeping you from maximizing your vacation, aren't you going to say something? Can we, like, people table their arguments on vacation. They're like, come on, this is not even important right now compared to, like, it's not letting us maximize. So we do understand this concept that when you fixate on what is trivial, it really does take away from your ability to be present with what is important. This is understood in relationships. This is understood at work. This is understood at school. If in your classrooms you're sitting there focusing on everything else but the lecture, right? So you understand the concept of giving your energy to what is significant. And so one of the things we always have to ask ourselves is, do we prioritize the requirements of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is that a priority for me? And if I prioritize the requirements of my boss, if I prioritize the requirements of a teacher, if I prioritize, these questions are not foreign to us. The concept of prioritizing the requirements of someone else is not foreign to us. But it becomes heavy when we think about it in terms of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then it's like, hold on, wait. Like, can we please, like, calm down a little bit? But He's your creator. These people that you're prioritizing, your boss who tells you to do something, your teacher who tells you to do something, they didn't create you. But yet you have no problem prioritizing. You have no problem, people sometimes have no problem delaying their own prayers or delaying things that are important just to meet requirements of other people. So what happens when you become a person who is more attached to working for that world than this world? You become a person who prioritizes the requirements of Allah more than anything else, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has called you to. And Ibn Ata'Allah, he says, rahimahullah, he says, undertake the duties and tasks of servitude, meaning like obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that are required of you, and He shall undertake what He has committed Himself to. Yarhamukallah. Does He provide for insects while forgetting to provide for you? Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ar-Razzaq, that's who He is. It's constant. Allah is who He is, regardless of you. But He will do His job, always, because He provides for people who don't even believe in Him. But are you busy making sure you undertake your duties and what He has called you to, that only benefit you and not Him. So this truth actually is reflected in the Quran so powerfully and so beautiful. It's one of my favorite verses in the Quran. It's in Surah Taha. And I want you to be present with these verses because they really speak to the human experience of fixating on this lower world and all its beauties and all its blessings and all the things that maybe you want in your life, and you're wondering, well, why don't I have it? And you're that chase, right? That chase of wanting more and more and more, and forgetting the bigger picture. And this happens to a lot of people where they'll fixate on something and it will eat them up. And then they'll compare, well, why does that person have it and why don't I have it, right? You know, there's a verse in the Quran that addresses this experience so powerfully, that you looking at other, like the blessings of the world, looking cravingly at it, wishing that it was yours, right? And not in a like evil eye way or like a jealousy way, but just in the sense of like you're fixating on it, right? So in Surah Taha, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, ولا تمدن عينيك إلى ما متعنا به أزواجا منهم زهرة الحياة الدنيا لنفتنهم فيه ورزق ربك خير وأبقى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, this is the first verse. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not let your eyes look longingly or cravingly, right? Like you're craving. Do not let your eyes crave or look longingly at what we have allowed some of them to enjoy. The fleeting splendor of this worldly life, which we test them with. But your Lord's provision in the hereafter is far better and more lasting. But also, in the hereafter is in parentheses, right? Meaning that that wasn't explicitly said in the verse. So it also could mean that what your Lord has for you, even in this world, is better for you. Not just what He has for you in the next world. But this verse is so powerful because I'm sure you've all had these moments where you're praying for something and you're fixating so much on what you have or don't have in this world. And all you could fixate on is like, why don't I have it? Why isn't Allah answering my dua? And you have this rigid idea of what your life should look like. You know, a lot of people have this by certain, especially age specific, right? By certain age, I should have this, I should have accomplished this, I should have had this. And Allah subhanahu, and then you look longingly, let's say at people in your peer group or people who are, in your same age bracket and are achieving things that you're not, or getting things that you're not. Or perhaps you're praying for things that you see other people get easily. This happens to people all the time. They say, I've been practicing, I've been asking Allah, I did everything right, I did everything by the book. Why is Allah answering those people's prayers and not mine? Look at this verse. Do not let your eyes look longingly at what we have allowed some of them to enjoy. The fleeting splendor of this worldly life. What we have given them, what is it for? Which we test them with. You see those things that you're looking longingly at? Every single thing everyone was given, they will be asked about it. Because we're on a loan. Everything we have is not ours. We are not the owners. We do not own. You do not own anything that you were giving. You're not the true owner. That's why is there a judgment day? Because your life itself was a loan. And it's the greatest gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could give us, right? And it's something that we're going to be asked about. So we forget that. A lot of people get so fixated on blessings and all they see is the blessing. You know how they say, like, when you look at someone's life and you see their blessings, remember the hardship that it took that they went through, that you don't see, that's veiled from you. Especially in the world of social media, all you see is people's blessings. All you see is the highlight reel, the perfection, the perfect image. You don't see the hardship. You don't see the cries, the tears, the work, the effort. You don't see what that person did or the path that they took before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them this. You don't see that. You don't see people's pain. You see people's achievements and blessings. You see the surface. It's like the iceberg. You only see the tip. You don't see what is greater and underneath. And that's the thing, when this world is your only reality and the reality that you're most attached to, you're gonna just judge things based on the surface. Oh, they have blessings. I don't. Poor me. And you fall into that self-victimization. where all you can fixate on is what you don't have. And it's so easy to fall into this, right? It's so easy to fall into this poor me kind of narrative where you start viewing yourself as inferior because you don't have certain things in your life, because your life doesn't look a certain way. But when you're attached to what Allah is doing for you, not just in this world, it to come, but also meaning like His plan for you that's in motion, that you're veiled from, that you don't see yet with your physical eyes, and also His plan for you or the reward that He's going to give you in the hereafter for every delay, for every pain, for every hardship, for every prick of a thorn, for every sorrow, for every fatigue. All that you're veiled from. When you're disconnected from that reality, all you're going to see is what? Your pain. That's all you're going to see. And this is what's happening to so many people. I cannot begin to tell you how many times I've seen how a person's attachment to the akhirah has helped them transform themselves completely in every area of their life. Every area. Because Allah, by the way, this is a formula that Allah has given us. The Prophet ﷺ, he told us that whoever makes the akhirah their priority, what does Allah do for them? He enriches their heart. This world within you becomes rich. The best risk, the best provision is inward. A lot of people are rich outside of them, but they're not rich inside. That's, there's a difference they say between having money and being wealthy or being rich, is that you could have money, but you're not really truly wealthy. You're not truly rich. Richness is inside. So many people have defined wealth and richness and value based on what they have externally, not how beautiful their world is internally. How beautiful you think about yourself, about others, about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how beautiful you interpret things, how beautiful you connect to things, what is your inner world like? That's what you go to bed with, and that's what you wake up with. And it doesn't matter if you wake up in a mansion and you sleep in a mansion. If your inner world is not peaceful, you are not rich. So the next part, so now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, do not look longingly at what we have given others, and He tells you that, we test them with whatever we have given them, but your Lord's provision is far better and more lasting. What I'm going to give you in this world and the next is so much better. And not only so much better, so much more lasting. It's not going to be, because remember, the first part was fleeting worldly splendor, right? But what I give you is much more lasting. The next verse right after it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you to do something. What do you think it is? So after He tells you, don't look longingly, take the eye of your heart away from this world to that degree, then He reminds you of what He's going to do for you. What do you think is the next thing that now He's going to remind you of what? Prayer. Is it because yeah. Okay. So it is prayer, right? So the next part is وَأْمُرْ أَهْلَكَ بِالصَّلَاةِ وَاسْتَبِرْ عَلَيْهَا لَا نَسْأَلُكَ رِزْقًا نَحْنُ نَرْزُقُكَ وَالْعَاقِبَةُ لِلتَّقْوَى. Bid your people to pray and be diligent in observing it. We do not ask you to provide. This is one of my favorite statements. لا نسألك رزقا نحن نرزقك. We do not ask you to provide. It is we who provide. Meaning, did I place the burden of providing for yourself on you? Meaning the outcomes and how much provision you're going to get and when things are going to happen for you and the timing of everything and the outcome of everything. Did I place that in your responsibility? No. And I never asked you from that. I never asked of you that. We provide. That is my responsibility. Remember what Ibn Ata'Allah said earlier? He said, he says, undertake the duties and tasks that basically you're responsible for. Allah will take care of what He is responsible for. And we forget this formula, we really do. And it's hard to start, by the way. It's so heavy for a lot of people if they're not used to living their lives this way of like, what is a priority to Allah? It could feel like a mountain on the heart. But it only feels that way initially. And then Allah helps you every step of the way. And you could ask yourself this. I've been doing it my way for, let's say, like, you haven't been living by this formula, where you prioritize the akhirah more than this dunya, where that's your greatest concern. Let's say you've been living by, this is my greatest concern, this world and everything, and the people, and the outcomes, and the provision, and what I'm gonna get, and the chase, and the rat race, and all of that, right? Let's say that's been your priority. Then, has that worked for you? Has that helped you? Has that created peace for you? Has that created sakina for you? Tranquility. Has that helped you grow? Has that helped you walk your life lighter, your path lighter in this world? All it did is weigh you down with more burdens and more responsibilities that He did not ask you to carry. It's like a person who is going on vacation and bringing their whole suitcase, bringing their whole closet, and trying to bring everything and trying to carry things that they're only there for a temporary time. You would think, what are you doing? But what's really interesting about this is that after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you to basically shift your heart away and shift your gaze away, the eyes, your physical eyes, but also the eye of your heart, away from the splendor, these fleeting splendors of this world, and now trusting in and to trust in what He has to offer you. Meaning what? What does the creation have to offer you? And sometimes this happens to people when they're seeking something, they fixate too much on how the creation could help them, right? How the creation could help them accomplish this and this and this. And sometimes it can be, and people can then end up being resentful. Why isn't this person helping me? Why isn't this person? And you try to knock on this door and that door, and you're not getting the answers, and people are not helping. And you start to get bitter, and you start to get angry, and you start to feel like you're not being seen or being helped in the same way. And that is painful. But those moments are opportunities for you to see His power and His strength, His ability to help you, and that He is the source of what you think the creation has to offer you. But immediately after this, the verse, he brings back the attention to what is in your responsibility. Are you praying? Are you upholding these 5 appointments with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Let's just, like, on a basic level, are you upholding what I have placed in your responsibility? That doesn't benefit Him, it benefits you, so you can maintain a link to Him as the source of everything that you need. Because that's what salah is. It's a sila, it's a link that keeps you connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and being the source and the source of everything that you have, everything that you need. So it keeps you connected to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the infinite supply of everything you need to thrive in this world. But sometimes we start the wrong way. Meaning we try to live our lives, sometimes we try to live our lives with the wrong formula. And Allah lets us. Through trial and error, you start to learn the priority. That's why tests are a blessing. Because Allah could easily leave you far from Him. Allah could easily leave you living by the wrong formulas. Allah could easily leave you prioritizing yourself as a destination, and prioritizing your nafs and your ego, and prioritizing this world more than the next. He could easily leave you. And He does. When He doesn't see potential in people, He gives them the entire dunya. A different set of laws. Here, take it. You're going to enjoy it for some time, take it. And you see this, right? Why? People ask this all the time. Why do they have, why do people don't believe in Allah? They have so much and things are easier, I mean, it's a perception thing, but sometimes Allah gives people. So the way that as Muslims, we have a different view. Not everything, just because you get a blessing doesn't mean it's good, right? So you always are asking Allah to give me what is good in this dunya and the akhirah. And goodness is something that He defines, not you. That's why the believer, when Allah gives them a blessing, he doesn't say, oh, Allah has honored me. And when Allah tests them, He doesn't say, this is in Surah Al-Fajr. Allah gives us this example. of a person who Allah gives something, and he says, Allah has honored me. When Allah has tested him, he says, oh, Allah has humiliated me or disgraced me. Both reactions are wrong, because when Allah gives you, it's not necessarily that Allah is honoring you. And when Allah tests you, it doesn't mean that Allah is disgracing you. Allah often tests those whom He loves, those who He wants to give so much more to. And even if you think about just like faith aside or deen, religion aside, I mean, people will attest to this. They'll say it's the hardest times that led me to the greatest fruits. Just even on a dunya level, you don't achieve really anything meaningful without hardship. Helen Keller said this. She says times of hardship, produce greater things than times of ease ever could. She understood this through what? Her lived experience of being blind and hardship. She felt she gained so much from that hardship. Subhanallah. So this is why we constantly need a connection to Allah's words, because it helps reframe how you view your own life and you view your own struggles, and it helps you, become more consistent and become more grounded in how you approach and you interpret your lives. But so that becomes the next order, bid your people to pray and be diligent in observing it. So now, focus on what we have put in your responsibility. We do not ask you to provide. It is we who provide. And the ultimate outcome is only for the people of righteousness. So the best outcome that you're seeking is only for the people of righteousness. Ibn Allah, he gives an example of this man who was a grave robber, but he had repented to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so he became practicing, and he one time told his sheikh, I have robbed 1,000 graves and have found their faces, he found many graves, like when he would rob them, he found many people to be, their faces to be turned away from the Qibla, even though they were originally faced towards the Qibla, right? Which is, subhanAllah. And the Shaykh said, my child, that is because of their doubts concerning their provision, meaning like their constant detachment from Allah being the provider, the doubt that Allah will provide for them, their doubts concerning that they're going to receive from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is something to always remember. And when you are sitting there preoccupied about what you're going to get in this world and how you're going to be taken care of tomorrow, always remember this, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes care of the birds that go out hungry every day and come back with filled stomachs. Allah takes care of the birds. Allah takes care of as Ibn Allah rahimahullah, he reminds us, He takes care of the insects. How could He not take care of you? How can He not provide for you? But your job is to make sure that, am I upholding what He has called me to, what He has asked for me, what is good for me? Not what, okay, here Allah, I did it, this is what you want. No, I need prayer. I need it. And perhaps Allah is withholding from you, the things that you are seeking so that you can get what you need the most. So sometimes people will abandon prayer while seeking all these things that they want from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they're wondering, why is Allah delaying these things for me, and getting bitter and angry and resentful? It is out of Allah's love for you that He withholds these things that you need that are these things that you want that are secondary, until you put in order or rectify the most important thing that you need, which is a sila to Him, a link to Him, which is your prayer. And it's so important to go to each prayer, and I've talked about this before, to go to each prayer with this longing for Allah. Not just an obligation or, oh, it's something I have to just, check off, but actually looking at it as, I need this prayer. And I'm longing to meet with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my Creator, my greatest love, the one who loves me more than anyone else, the one who has created for me and the one I return to, the one who has built for me an eternal, most beautiful home, the one who has always taken care of me. This is something to always remember. Allah has always taken care of you up to this point. Why are you doubting that He's not going to take care of you? If up to this point He has taken care of you. He took care of you when you were in the womb. So look at how many obstacles, look at how many things you had to get through, and Allah took care of you, and He showed you a way out. So Allah is who He is. Allah does not change according to you, by the way. Allah is constant. He's self-sufficient. He's the ever-living. And Allah will always be who He is regardless of who you are. Meaning that people sometimes think, oh, Allah's going to change because of how I feel, or Allah does not function according to your emotions. Allah does not function according to your imperfections. Allah has said He is who He said He is, and He will always be who He said He is. But will you be who He wants you to be, and who He has commanded you to be, and what He has, and will you fulfill what He has prescribed for you? And that's the question that we should ask ourselves always.